now, and I am also going to say welcome again. And this is our next to the last meeting on this stuff. And realizing it's the week after Thanksgiving, I'm sure everybody's got a lot of stuff on their plate, so to speak, for the rest of the week. Okay, I'm going to start sharing the screen, and the first thing I'd like to bring up is this. Okay, if you get a moment, I put this in the chat, so all you can do is cut and paste it and put it in a browser for you guys. But if you guys could do this LSTA survey, and for those who are viewing this recording from our YouTube channel, if you guys could also type this in on your browser and fill out the form, because it's very important. This is an LSTA funded program, and it's also a good way for us to get feedback on the effectiveness of this, because all of you know who are doing any kind of virtual programming, feedback is very important, because you have no idea how something is going over because you have no live audience to react to usually. Some of you do, others of you don't. So do take the time to fill out the survey. It's not too long, but I'm sure it'll rock, with whatever information you give us. It is anonymous, I think, but we may be tracking you or may not. I don't know. But if you guys can fill that out so we can get some good, credible feedback. Okay, and this is a family reading program, a facilitated learning circle for early literacy, and a guide to virtual programming. Hello, everybody. And this day I'm going to say oi. And this is a facilitated learning circle zone. This is a collaboration of your experiences, all of our experiences. So please feel free to share. And the rules for participating are: please be respectful, don't speak over one another, switch off all distractions, cats, dogs, and cats and children excluded since they've been banished to home. And please try not to multitask during the learning circle if you can. And our objectives is understanding letter awareness, and which is an important early literacy skill. Our executive function today is going to be critical thinking and taking on challenges. The best practices for virtual story times, the sharing of early literacy and mind and making skills in virtual story times, and discussion time. As I mentioned, this is coming up on our next to last session. The next one will be on Thursday, same bat time, same bat channel, 10 a.m. on Thursday, December the 3rd. And the next one will be 2 weeks from now on December 14th and December 17th, Mondays and Thursdays. Okay, let's talk about letter awareness. I'm pretty sure that any one of you who are doing story times virtually are thankful for letter awareness. This is one I believe you guys can do fairly easily in a virtual setting. It doesn't take much to have a giant letter of your choice or a letter of the day or something like that in your story times. And to get the technical definition of this, letter knowledge is one of the early literacy skills that researchers say is important for children to have in order to learn to read. Letter knowledge is knowing that the same letter can look different, that letters have names and are related to sounds. So we're all aware, I'm pretty sure, that we have upper and lowercase letters, and the reason for uppercase and lowercase letters. So it's usually helpful to have, like, say, the big A and the little a, so they understand that there is a difference, but it's the same, in shape and size and contour. But it's also, how would you say, important? It's the same letter, though. Now, one of the things that I'm pretty sure that we have to be aware of in literacy skills when it comes to letter knowledge is the understanding that some letters have two sounds. And I don't know a good way of approaching that except to blame it on the Vikings for invading our lovely, lovely England and Scotland and everywhere else in the world. They got around, and the letter K pops up. That means a Viking's been there. So, but as you know, K can sound like a C or it can sound like an N. And helping children understand that early on is very important, as well as the vowels. Consonants are usually pretty straightforward, unless you get a weird one like K, or you get one with a French ending, which you're not supposed to say, but mostly the vowels are important. And I think that's something to concentrate on early on with the kids and the parents. And one of the good things about all of this is that you have a lot of ways of teaching letter awareness, and it's an easy skill for you to mention to parents about how to teach letter awareness. The first thing you do in letter awareness from everybody, or letter knowledge, is mostly just get them to learn what their name looks like. And most parents will have the big letters on the refrigerator or have the blocks. And it's very important also that when the children get over a certain age and have motor functioning, that they can actually write their name. And writing is a big part of letter knowledge. So it's one of those things that they will imitate you writing. I wrote some really great novels when I was 3 that unfortunately the editors couldn't understand my handwriting. But, it's important that you emphasize these skills and how to write, as well as how to recognize the letters and simple drawing. Now, one of the cool things that I know that some libraries do, and some children's librarians do, and I don't know if you've done this, but I'm going to ask you guys briefly, is what they do is they get a box of sprinkles and they put it in a plate or in a pan, cooking pan, and have them spell out the names with their fingers, the letters with their fingers. Or it doesn't have to be sprinkles. It also can be a sandbox where you just trace the letters and you have them do it. And it's a really good way to develop a lot of good functioning skills. And it's and it's an easy one to pass on to the parents, so you can help them with letter knowledge and letter awareness. But let's go around a little quickly. Does anybody have a favorite idea or technique for letter knowledge?
I just wanted to say, Bruce, again, I'm pretty new to this. I've done one virtual story time and I'm part-time, so I didn't do it regularly in the branch either.
Mm-hmm.
But my daughters went to Montessori school from age 3 through 2nd grade, and a big part of their primary education is, they call it sandpaper letters, and that's exactly what they do. Is they trace, and they're cursive, they trace the sandpaper letter with their index finger, and it's all part of developing motor skills and a preparation for cursive handwriting, which they do, I'm trying to remember now, probably by kindergarten. My girls are 24, but we really loved that part of Montessori. There were a lot of things that combined, written and spoken and tactile all together.
Yeah. Well, one of the things you definitely can do virtually for your story times and teaching these skills is just do a quick demonstration video of how to set something like that up, and I would add that in to the mix, so to speak, of your YouTube channels, or even if you're doing a live version, you will not mess this up, no matter how dedicated you are. And if you do, you deserve a special award because it is really hard to mess up the teaching of how to set up, but I'm such a klutz, so it's always possible. And, you can go viral on that. But Casey, do you have any experiences with this yet that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I think I shared this last time, but I've had the kids write the first letter of their names, or have their parents write that, and then they cover it with stickers or beans or cereal. Also, another favorite is to fill a Ziploc bag with hair gel and then zip it closed and put some duct tape over it. And then they can then make letters and you slide it up
Ah,
and they can make letters in it. And it's really fun and it's squishy and it gives it that tactile fun.
definitely. I like that idea. I haven't heard of that one. That's great. Thanks for sharing. Wow. Where were these ideas when I was little, right? But hey, Judy, you got anything to add?
I think just what I suggested last time was and I think you can do it virtually too, was just hold up a letter maybe that you're focusing on for that story. And so that it kind of pulls it out of the text then, and they can see just that letter really big on like a little, kind of like a half sheet of paper size. You know, just like a big C or a big D, and then you can emphasize that letter during the story time.
Definitely. But I do know a lot of people like the refrigerator letters, and they're easy to find, they're easy to get. And when the child gets a little bit bigger, you know, they see the letters, they can spell things out. You can spell out things for them, you can move them around. I think touch is really a very important way for children to discover what letters are. And it's why the blocks, the children's blocks, I always have a raised letter on it so they can actually feel the shape and understand the shape, because they're very much, when they're in their younger years, touch is one of the most important things for them to understanding the world and processing it in their brain. And you know, the other thing is that if you give out a hint during your story times, like to the parents, like a suggestion, like saying, if you're driving around and you see a stop sign, you want to point out the letter S. Or if you see any sign that has the first letter of the name of the child, say, look at the sign, they have your name. They have your, excuse me, dogs, they have your names. You know, they have your first letter of your name up there. Can you see that? And usually the signs are really big. Hopefully it's an appropriate sign, because, you know, you don't want a cigarette or whatever, or something that, you know, parents are usually good about using discretion on those things. But, you know, you always try to relate their first letters with their name, you know, and especially the vowels and things like that. And believe me, once they understand the difference between a silent E and a pronounced E, you know, a lot of parents get their children over that hurdle. Learning becomes a little bit easier. Okay, so I think we all know why it's important. You know, if you don't know your letters, you can't form words and you can't read. So it's always important, I think, to discuss to the parents how to make the child learn letters to form words. And to when we get to the next section of the critical thinking section, this will dovetail nicely into it. Is that, you know, you're getting them to think, you're getting them to combine words. They're good observers of things. And I always believe that you guys know more. You're doing this always unintentionally. You don't set out to teach letter knowledge or letter awareness. It just happens. And if you do it well enough, parents will emulate you. So I'm going to stop the screen right now, and let's have a little quick brief discussion on what was your first memory of letter awareness or letter knowledge? We can start with Terry.
Yay. At least on my
Yay.
screen, I'm the first on the left there in
Yeah.
reading awareness left to right. I remember very early on in, I think, every elementary classroom, certainly first grade, they had the cursive letters up above the chalkboard where the teacher stood. And they had both the capital and the lowercase together, I believe. And it was kind of a green background with a dotted line, like, so you'd know, how high to make the letter. And then oddly enough, I think they even had those at my dentist's office in some form, when I was really little. So I don't remember it clearly, but very, very early letter awareness that way in the classroom.
How about you, Sarah?
I'm thinking about how much I remember being surrounded by and fascinated by, you know, letters. And whereas I have an older brother who's a couple years older, and I can remember making out the letters in his drawings and papers from school and recognizing the letters in his name and recognizing the different letters in my own name. So those are kind of my early memories, but definitely surrounded by and fascinated by and read every sign, every book, spine, everything.
Mm-hmm. And that might be one little good little hint to the parents also, is to say the full word when they see a sign, like, look, stop, stop sign.
Right.
We didn't do that. That was wrong. You know,
And call out the letters even
and
when
call
there's
out
just a
the
few
letter.
letters.
Yeah.
And things like the cereal boxes and the things in their everyday
Mhm.
lives are also bringing that awareness, because I think there's an element too of the letters looking different. You know, they look various in different
Mhm.
fonts and different prints, but they all, you know, there's this connection knowing that they stand for the same set of sounds.
Right.
Anyway.
Yeah. And Casey, anything in your come to mind?
Well, I have a capital letter in the middle of my name, and I was very aware of that so I went into kindergarten and the teacher had our names and there was no capital C, and I just remember, this is wrong. You know, telling her, this is not how my name is spelled. And so I was very aware of capital versus little just because of that in my name. So
yeah. Yeah. How about you, Judy? Do you recall your first letter awareness moment?
I just remember I loved writing. So, and I was somewhat of a perfectionist. So I always wanted to get my loops and everything perfect between the dotted lines and make it exactly the same. But then I started getting a little too creative and doing too many swirls, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I remember. I loved writing.
Well, one day we'll be able to discuss if cursive writing is disappearing, because I've read some news about how, because we're going digital, cursive writing is just not showing, is not being a skill being emphasized as much as it used to be. And whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but that is definitely an hour-long discussion or even a day-long discussion. Because I always felt like cursive writing had a lot more benefits in helping them with their control and making it legible so that it'll be illegible when you get older, but you can still figure out what they're writing. So that's also going to dovetail nicely into Sarah's section, which I'm going to bring up, share the screen. Thank you all for your input and things like that. And let's go to Sarah's. Give me one moment. Okay, where is, this is, no. Give me one moment to find you, Sarah. I have you on here, but as usual, it's not, if you're not using it, it kind of hides from you. One second.
I know, once you get the screen up, then everything else is lost, it feels like.
Yeah.
I appreciate you running the slides. It seemed to make it easier. And there's nothing groundbreaking that's going to come from the slides, so I guess we don't have to worry too much.
Well, still, it's always a nice little distracting thing to look at, and there might be something on there. Okay, and I think I'm sharing this with you guys, so let me set it up from the beginning.
Okay. So I'm just going to start with the same things I kind of always start with, to remind you that with the virtual story times and the in-person story times are skill building activities. So when we talk about Mind in the Making and the 7 essential skills, we're talking about promoting executive functioning. So even at the very earliest times in our lives as infants, there are things that adults can do to help babies practice their executive function skills and build these 7 essential skills that are going to prepare them for life. But like I said, the story times are already using a lot of the activities and the kinds of actions that are built into Mind in the Making. So just by showing up and just by participating, a lot of these things are already happening. So let's move on to the next slide. So we talked about how the programs that are building essential skills really do focus on, emphasizing those bonds between adults and children, and emphasizing the opportunities for extended back and forth interactions between adults and children, and also exercising those executive functions. So giving opportunities to practice our executive functions. So story times, of course, are something that does all three of those things. And this is how we do it with these action steps. So again, these are often built into the things that you're doing, particularly when you all are finding ways to emphasize those literacy skills in your virtual programming or in your in-person programming. These are the sorts of actions that you are using, and I can recognize from your descriptions. You're using all of these things to kind of create that learning. And these are things that adults are doing all the time naturally. So using these actions help us build those essential skills, help us leverage and build those bonds and have those interactions. So these are the 5 steps that you'll often see built into Vroom and the Mind in the Making skill building activities. So let's go on to the next slide. We talked about in the previous sessions other skills. We talked about focus and self-control. We talked about perspective taking, communicating, making connections. So to me, a lot of what you're talking about today in letter knowledge and letter awareness really fits well with making connections, which we talked about last time. So it's, understanding that symbols stand for other things. And you're doing that all the time with the storytelling and your library programming in general, anything based on literacy. Today, we're going to talk about critical thinking, and we're going to talk about taking on challenges. So here we're getting toward the end of the 7 essential skills, and they get a little meatier as we go along. And you can see how when we get here to critical thinking and then to taking on challenges, we really are needing to have built those other skills that we've already talked about. Like in order to do these steps of critical thinking, you need to have some focus and self-control, right? You need to be able to have some perspective that's outside of what your own understanding is. You need to be able to communicate, and even when you're communicating in writing or somehow communicating the next steps of your process. And you need to be able to make the connections when they come up. So critical thinking is really the way that we are understanding the world, and we know it's important. We all have to do it. And when children are doing it, they're often using the same general steps that a scientist would when they're trying to understand the world. So these are the steps that children often take in critical thinking, and they're doing it through play. So when you're watching a child play, you'll often see these steps start to emerge when that child is left alone. These are also the steps that an adult can help sort of promote or scaffold when playing with a child. And again, we talk about how some of the books that you're going to read are going to have a story or a theme that emphasizes critical thinking, and other times you're just going to be incorporating some of these elements and understandings into your programming. Let's go on to the next slide. So essentially, we can't depend on our own experiences and expertise for our understanding of the world. So we're consistently outsourcing to others and to other sources our understanding of the world, and children are doing that too. One of the ways they're doing that is to determine which adults are trusted messengers. So you, as you're doing these story times, you are the trusted messengers for things like those literacy skills. When you're showing the letter of the day and you're going through that process, you are the expert for letter awareness for that child. And you are building a relationship not just between the caregiver and the child by doing the story time, but you're building this bigger, broader relationship for that child and the world. So understanding how librarians are experts in this information and how they can learn these kinds of things from librarians. And for the rest of their lives, they can go to librarians with that sense of trust and understanding that this is a place where I can learn and get important information. So all this is built into critical thinking and our understanding about children using critical thinking steps when they're very, very young. Let's go to the next slide. taking on challenges is where we get, like, we really need to be able to use that critical thinking and all those skills that came before us to take on the stresses of the world. So we talk about taking on challenges in Mind in the Making. A lot of that, when you read the book and you go through the learning modules, a lot of that is about our ability to manage stress and anxiety and just the pressures of the world. So obviously every life has stress in it, and there's a reason for that, right? With our stress response, tells us and helps us decide how we're going to react to maybe things that are dangerous, maybe things that are frightening. So stress is an important part within certain limits, right? And we can learn to manage our stress. Part of the way we can do that is by having supportive relationships. And for children, again, that's part of this bonding that we're talking about. So protecting children from stress, I think this is important because there's there's a fine line maybe for some of us are understanding toxic stress that we hear about so much in our adverse childhood experiences. We want to be protected from adverse experiences, but we don't want to protect children from stress, right? We want everyone to be able to react to the stressors of life. So we neither want to remove all of the barriers to experiencing stress, nor present too many barriers, too many stressful barriers. So there's a balance there. Let's go to the next slide.
This one?
Yeah.
There we go.
There we go, right.
Yeah.
So again, children are looking to adults to learn about where are the trusted messages coming from, who is a trusted person to give me information about trying to understand a problem or solve a problem, who is a person, an adult that I can look to who handles the stressors of the world and manages them, and who models that kind of behavior. So children are looking to us to see how we're reacting to stressful situations. And sometimes that might be the stress of getting your technology to work during a virtual live program, right? Or sometimes it's the stress of just, getting ready for school, or, the child is chewing on the book instead of looking at the book. These are just everyday little things that give us a little anxiety spike, right? And sometimes just managing those every days. And I know from watching your programming that children's librarians are very good at creating that soothing, calm environment that's conducive to the learning, so that you're skilled at both making sure that the parent or caregiver is comfortable and that the child is comfortable, and that everyone understands that this is a place where we have some parameters, but it's a place to explore, and everybody can do that in their own way. Right? So we can be really intentional about how we convey the management of stress, how we, when we recognize that it's stress, if we're leading a situation and we can recognize that someone's child is crying and that adult is feeling like that's stressing out the whole room. No, we can convey in these scenarios, as you often do. No, we're all fine here. Everything's fine here. We can handle this small moment of stress, and we get to the work at hand, to get to the learning at hand. So I wanted to spend a little bit more time than I normally do talking about those skills as we get into these meatier skills, right? We only have one left next week, and that's really the pinnacle of all the rest of these. But I wanted to be really clear about this part where we really need these things to be in place to get to where we're fundamentals of learning are really solid, and that child can go forward into school and into other challenges in life too. So let's go forward to the next slide and talk about just looking at skills building in your program, which we do every time. And again, I push these skill building books that are part of the Mind in the Making, I don't want to say curriculum, part of the program. And I continue to promote these books. The Children's Cabinet is going to be buying a lot of these books and distributing them through our partners, where we have some partners in Nevada that we purchase books through grant funds and then get them distributed. So we'll be using the Mind in the Making skill building books. We'll be incorporating room tips and these skill building one-pagers that go along with each book. And again, these are books in this series of Mind in the Making skill building books that where the story or the theme of each book focuses on that skill. So not only is the act of reading the book together an opportunity to build skills, but the book itself is focused on a particular skill. So that's kind of a fun way to use these books. And I think if you're familiar with these books, which you probably are, you can easily see the connection between the skill and the theme of this book, right? Like that one was one of my kids' favorites. The was it red hat, green hat? I forget what it's called, but with all the socks on the hands and the pants on the head, and that was a really fun one and a funny one for critical thinking, right? And it's really easy to see that connection with the books. We'll go on to the next slide and we'll talk again about how it doesn't have to be books to build the skill in your program. There's lots of different ways, and different librarians, different virtual programs for families are doing it in different ways. So you can leverage those 5 actions like we talked about that you're already doing. You're taking turns, you're extending these moments in your programming and telling the story. So you're already doing that. You can do more of that. You can articulate more of that for families and caregivers. You can talk more directly about the essential skills if that's where you want to go, and you can use examples that adults can relate to in their own lives. Games are something that you probably do when you're in person, and they're a real simple way to explain or demonstrate skill building, as easy as Simon Says, or complicated like Chutes and Ladders. You know, all of those are designed to enhance and build these particular skills. We talked before about using a doll or a puppet in the frame with you to give the sense of some interaction. You can promote or demonstrate Vroom tips, which, you know, Mind in the Making is this learning journey about all the research and the skills, why they're important, how to promote them. Vroom is taking all that on the go. So finding ways to actually do those 5 brain building actions on the go. So Vroom is a good way to layer these things in. You can look at the Mind in the Making book as professional development, or for with families, parents, caregivers. You can also pick up some of the things off social media, like there's a bunch of Vroom videos and other kinds of videos around Mind in the Making, as well as articles. You can find them by following Mind in the Making or Vroom on social media, and then you can easily take and share the pieces that you see there that enhance maybe the setup for your story time, or a follow-up for your story time, or something that could enhance what you're already doing. So that's where I'm going to leave it. And I just wanted to open it up if you guys want to talk about those skills, or you want to talk more specifically about programming and how to build it into your programming. That's what I'm here for.
Just a little add-on suggestions to you guys. Please go to your teaching books database, and if you put in Mind in the Making, they will give you a bunch of activities as well as books to look at, and under these critical skills. And it's available to all libraries and all people. You know, you can even tell the parents that if you want more information or you want more activities, teaching books is usually a very good one. The other thing I would also say is take a look at, if you have access to them yet, your summer reading manuals, and see how you can fit these skills into the summer reading program. The activities and things like that, that you can just say as an aside to parents, this is really good for patients. This is really good for stress management. And if you have games that you will allow parents to check out, you know, kind of throw in, this game is very good for this skill, for critical thinking. This game is very good for stress you know, how to manage stress. And the last part I would add into this is that we have a wonderful opportunity here to develop ourselves as experts for both parents and children. And it's always about, you know, when they know there's somebody they can go ask a question and not be judged harshly for it, it's a good thing for us to keep in the back of our heads and pass on to other library staff people that, you know, we have a reputation to maintain for being knowledgeable, for being unjudging, you know, and or unjudging, I don't even know if that's a word, non-judgmental, but you know, pretty much it goes over for both the parents and children, because you're going to have parents who come up to you and say, my child is having really difficulty writing letters. Some of them are reversed. Do you think I should talk to somebody about that? Now, you're not a doctor or anything like that, but that's a clear sign something's wrong. Maybe, you know, you could mention to them, well, I would talk to your pediatrician, or I'd talk to somebody, a medical professional about it, because maybe they're developing a learning disability or have a learning disability that hasn't been diagnosed yet. And as all of you know, learning disabilities caught early definitely have a better chance of being sorted out, and the child won't hit school with it, and, you know, or they'll be aware of it, so that this won't hinder them when they're trying to learn, you know. So that's just the only things that I'd like to add. We got 3 minutes here, so if anybody has any ideas about critical thinking, or, you know, and you'd like to discuss it, the forum is now open. But before we do that, let me share my screen one more time before we go, because I hate it when we run out of time, but I know why we got to. Okay. So just to go into things to think about next time, vocabulary and narrative skills. And in the Mind of the Making executive functioning, we're going to talk about self-directed, engaged learning and goal setting. And thank you for attending. My name's Bruce Douglas, and here's my contact information and Sarah's contact information if you guys need it. And I'll give you a second if you need to write that down, because our writing skills are deteriorating every day. And also, please take the LSTA survey, and you put this in chat so you can just cut and paste it and put it into a browser if you need to. If you want to do it right after this session, when your mind is all, yeah, go state library, yeah. And till then, and okay, so I am going to run the recording just a little bit in case you guys have anything you'd like to add.
Are those your puppies, Bruce?
No, I wish they were, but my puppies are just as cute. I just can't get them to pose for a picture to save their lives.
Mine's asleep on the floor behind the sofa. She's pretty cute too.
Yeah.
10 years old.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, we got 3, and they're all middle-aged to elder now. So you hear them occasionally in the background barking at a leaf blowing across the lawn. But one of the things I also want to mention, a good game for stress, for parents to demonstrate stress to their kids, Jenga. You know, because then they can actually see parents stressing out about which one to pick and things like that, and how they manage it, how they do their critical thinking, like, you know, and if they verbalize their step-by-step thinking, the kids will definitely catch on to see the scientific method in action, even if it's applied inappropriately. So, you know, I'm pretty sure most libraries have a Jenga set somewhere, because we're always searching for the pieces. So you probably have enough lost pieces to form a new Jenga set. So, you know, mention that one and things like that as a possibility for helping critical thinking skills. Not so much letter awareness, but who knows. So I am going to go ahead and stop the recording. Thank you all for attending. And